On this Monday edition of Newsline at noon, armed police have surrounded a cafe in Sydney where at least one gunman is thought to be holding around a dozen people hostage. A black and white flag with Arabic writing has been visible in the windows. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe tightens his grip on power with his ruling coalition winning a supermajority in parliament in Sunday's snap election. Plus, North Korea says it's preparing to open a new era under its young leader Kim Jong-un as it gets ready to mark the third anniversary of the death of his father and former leader Kim Jong-il. These stories and more on Newsline at noon. It's new Monday, December 15th here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in. Live from Seoul, I'm Oh-jin Chu.
It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. Now, a very tense situation is unfolding in Sydney, Australia this afternoon as heavily armed police have cordoned off Martin Place, which is a pedestrian mall right in the heart of the city where an unknown number of people, but said to be at least a dozen, perhaps as much as up to 40 people, are being held hostage by a gunman or gunmen at a cafe.
Right. It's an unprecedented hostage situation for the country. And for the latest, let's connect live to our Eunice Kim at the News Center, who's been following the developments for us. Eunice, Prime Minister Tony Abbott has addressed the nation about an hour ago. Tell us what he said.
Well, Chinju, his remarks suggest that there is still a lot of information that authorities don't know. Prime Minister Abbott said the motive behind this hostage-taking situation is still unknown, as he urged what officials have been calling for since this news broke earlier today, and that is to remain calm.
The whole point of politically motivated violence is to scare people out of being themselves. Australia is a peaceful, open and generous society. Nothing should ever change that, and that's why I would urge all Australians today to go about their business as usual.
He also provided a national security hotline that people can report tips to. Now, for those of you who are just hearing this story, around 10 a.m. local time on Monday, a Lindt chocolate cafe was taken hostage in Martin Place, which is at the heart of Sydney's shopping and banking district. 7 News in Australia has been reporting that it believes at least 13 hostages are trapped inside. We saw pictures of people pressing their hands against the window, with one, possibly 2 perpetrators involved. The CEO of Lindt Australia did tell various media that he believes 10 staff members and about 30 customers were inside that cafe. Now onto that black flag with white Arabic writing that was also held up against the window for a time by people inside. Reports say it bears the Shahada, which is a neutral Islamic creed that's seen on things like the Saudi Arabian flag, but also embraced by jihadist groups. New South Wales Police, the National Police, as well as a bomb squad are on the scene as air traffic is rerouted from the area. The Sydney Opera House has also been evacuated after a suspicious package was found there.
Well, yeah, the Sydney Opera House has long been thought to be a target of terrorist attack in Australia because it's such a huge symbol of Australia.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. And there are also reports, Eunice, that a Korean is among the hostages. Can you tell us more about this?
Sure. Korea's Yonhap news agency is reporting that a Korean-Australian female college student is believed to be one of the staff who were working inside that Lindt chocolate cafe. She has the surname Bae, according to the reports. Meanwhile, the Korean Foreign Affairs Ministry has yet to confirm this. It said it is communicating with local authorities to determine whether there are any Korean citizens or residents involved.
And Eunice, as to to a possible motive for this, the Australian government has been very aggressive in the fight against terrorism, and it was the first country to join the U.S. coalition in the fight against the Islamic State in Syria and Iraq.
That's a good point, Jinju. And in fact, you may remember the Australian government had conducted a major counterterrorism raid back in September in the capital of Canberra as well as Sydney. Its largest ever that authorities say had exposed terror plots. So they have been very proactive. And most recently, police had arrested a 25-year-old man earlier on this Monday in Sydney for allegedly funneling money to terror groups. It is unclear yet, though, whether that and this hostage situation in Martin Place are related.
Yeah, well, there certainly is a lot of confusion and uncertainty still at this time, and it appears that very tense standoff around the cafe could continue for quite a long time, really.
That's right.
Well, Eunice, thanks ever so much for your report.
Sure thing.
Japan's ruling coalition led by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe won more than 2/3 of the total seats in the lower house of parliament in Sunday's snap general election.
And this gives Abe the mandate he was so desperately looking for to push ahead with his sweeping economic and security-related plans. Our Son Jong-in has the details.
Japan's ruling coalition won a landslide victory in parliamentary elections seen as a referendum on Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's economic policy. Abe's Liberal Democratic Party, together with its junior partner Komeito, retained a 2/3 majority of 475 seats in the lower house of parliament, giving them the power to pass legislation without recourse to the upper house.
I'm relieved we've managed to continue our ruling coalition with the Komeito party. But at the same time, this is also a great responsibility.
It was a crushing defeat for the main opposition Democratic Party of Japan, falling well short of the 100 seats it had unofficially targeted. Many observers say the lack of a clear political alternative to the ruling party left many voters feeling underwhelmed and questioning the need of an election in the first place. And as if reflecting the people's indifference, voter turnout was 52%, the lowest figure since World War II, and well short of the previous low of 59% set in 2012. Abe is now widely expected to push ahead with expanding the role of the military and restarting Japan's nuclear power plants. The win also gives the Prime Minister a fresh 4-year mandate to institute his economic policy known as Abenomics, which aims at reviving Japan's economy through monetary easing and strong public spending. 손정인, 아리랑 뉴스.
The international community is inching closer to a compromise on curbing greenhouse gas emissions and prevent dangerous levels of global warming. At the close of a UN meeting in Peru, nearly 200 countries reached a deal that lays the groundwork for a larger agreement in December of next year. Ji-yeon has the details.
More than 190 nations agreed on new measures to combat climate change at a United Nations meeting in Lima on Sunday. The deal urges governments to submit national plans by this coming March to curb greenhouse gas emissions. The national pledges will be used as a base for establishing a global agreement at the UN Climate Change Conference in Paris next December. The Lima draft is receiving mixed reviews. Some who urge stronger action on limiting increases in global temperatures say the text is weak. Others contend the deal has appeased both rich and emerging nations, who have been divided over which side should bear a bigger burden on reducing emissions.
The way that we were able to deal with that issue between the U.S. and China in the joint announcement of a few weeks ago actually ended up coming in quite handy here, and it has found its way into this text. As a way of kind of getting through that difficulty. So that was quite useful.
Korea is 7th biggest gas emitter in the world. To tackle climate change, Seoul has unveiled a carbon emission trading market where local business entities can buy or sell leftover emissions, much like a stock exchange. More than 500 companies are expected to participate in the emission trading market, which is scheduled to launch early next month. Through the system, Korea expects to reduce the amount of projected emissions by 30% by the year 2020. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
The U.S. government has confirmed the identity of the American citizen who was paraded by North Korea over the weekend, denouncing U.S. policies, and says it's prepared to help secure his safe passage out of the North. Speaking to South Korea's Yonhap News, State Department Deputy Spokesperson Mary Harf said the safety of its citizens is one of the government's utmost priorities, but advised Americans to think carefully before traveling to the North. On Sunday, 29-year-old Texan Arturo Martinez condemned Washington for alleged human rights violations and illegal wars, naming the Iraq War as an example. Martinez said he entered North Korea illegally in November, and he is there of his own free will, adding that he plans to seek asylum in Venezuela afterwards. But CNN reports his legal status is uncertain and may not be allowed to leave the country, as Pyongyang might want to use him for propaganda purposes. The U.S. government will be providing more support for North Korean human rights issues this coming year. Included in the $1.1 trillion funding bill passed by U.S. Congress over the weekend is language that requires the government to submit a report on North Korea's political prison camps to the intelligence committees of the House and Senate. It also mandates that information on the individuals and agencies responsible for the conditions at those prison camps be identified, regardless of their place within the North Korean regime. While more attention will be focused on the human rights situation there, the Congress will continue to ban any and all financial support to North Korea this upcoming fiscal year. And this Wednesday marks the 3-year anniversary of the passing of former North Korean leader Kim Jong-il. That gives us an opportunity to look back over the past 3 years of Kim Jong-un's time in power. While not much progress has been made on the diplomatic or economic fronts, Pyongyang is believed to have made strides in its military capabilities. Hwang Seung-hee reports.
North Korea has pledged to open a new era under Kim Jong-un's leadership. Ahead of the 3-year anniversary of the death of former leader Kim Jong-il, the state-run Nodongshinmun newspaper on Sunday said the last 3 years had been sacred and passed like a hot fireball. Listing the young Kim's Pyeongjin line, or the dual development of nuclear arms and the economy, and major construction projects, it labeled the last 3 years as historic, during which time the regime had become prosperous, both ideologically and materially. Pyongyang remains isolated from the world, but it has made strides in its military capabilities. North Korea has been increasing its accuracy rate of missiles through constant test firings, launching 111 missiles through 19 rounds this year. A senior South Korean military official says North Korea is running 30 nuclear-related institutions like nuclear power plants, and speculates Pyongyang possesses around 20 nuclear weapons, which is more than double the amount from a few years ago. Another official notes the North is close to being capable of attaching a miniaturized nuclear device on a Scud missile that could reach all corners of the Korean peninsula. Experts say North Korea's confidence level is higher than ever when it comes to war readiness, and that the regime could go ahead with a 4th nuclear test next year if things don't go their way on the diplomatic front. Hwang Seung-hee, Arirang News.
The main symbol of inter-Korean economic cooperation, the Kaesong Industrial Complex, is marking the 10th anniversary this month of when it started producing goods. The number of companies and employees has spiked over the last decade, but there's still plenty of room for growth. Connie Kim reports.
In December 2004, a set of 1,000 pots was the first thing to roll off the production line at the inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex. Since that day 10 years ago, the complex has grown beyond all recognition. In the early days, there were just 15 South Korean workers. Now, there are more than 120.
The increase in the number of North Koreans is even more startling, jumping from 6,000 to well over 50,000 today. In terms of its economic benefits to the Koreas, South Korea has raked in more than $3 billion, while the North has brought in some $380 million since 2004. Now that's not to say the Kaesong complex hasn't had its bumps along the way. The park is currently spread over some 3.3 million square kilometers. That might sound big, but that's just 5% of the original plan laid out. And just last year, Pyongyang unilaterally halted operations for 5 months amid heightened inter-Korean tensions. Despite the obstacles and unresolved issues, analysts say the industrial park is priceless in many ways.
The inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex is a place that goes beyond merely learning about North Korea's market economy. It's where the two Koreas realize economic cooperation, and it's a small area where the two Koreas have reunified.
Professor Yang notes a private consortium needs to be established for the two Koreas to push for the globalization of the Kaesong complex. Now, if the joint park ever reaches its full potential, watchers say it could bring in over $68 billion worth of benefits for both Koreas. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
North Korea's human rights record will likely be in the spotlight again this week as the United Nations prepares to consider a resolution on this issue. But widely expected vetoes by two of Pyongyang's allies, Russia and China, are a major concern, as is an important anniversary just before the vote itself. Ji-yeon reports.
The UN Security Council is likely to put North Korea's human rights record on its agenda this week. This follows UN members' passage last month of a strongly worded resolution calling for a referral of North Korea to the International Criminal Court for human rights violations.
Draft Resolution L28 Rev 1 * is thereby adopted.
The draft resolution, which won the favor of 111 member states, will likely pass the UN General Assembly on December 18th. After that, the issue will be put on the Security Council agenda. If the Security Council adopts the resolution, Pyongyang could be referred to the ICC. But only the Security Council can refer cases to the ICC. That means the chances that Pyongyang will be referred are slim, as China and Russia, 2 of the 5 veto-holding permanent members, are expected to reject a referral. Earlier this month, 10 of the 15 council members signed a letter calling for the North Korean human rights issue to be placed on the Security Council agenda for debate. North Korea's allies China and Russia did not sign.
We don't think the UN Security Council is the right place to discuss human rights problems. Referring human rights issues to the ICC won't solve any problems.
One concern is that if the Security Council passes the resolution on December 18th, Pyongyang could respond with anger, as it did last month. North Korea's Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs said the campaign staged by the United States and its followers
in their attempts to eliminate the state and social system of the DPRK is compelling us not to refrain any further from conducting nuclear tests.
Another concern is that the day before the final vote on the resolution, December 17th, is the 3rd anniversary of the death of former North Korean leader Kim Jong-il. Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea's National Assembly opened an extraordinary session on this Monday, and while a number of pending bills await approval, lawmakers are expected to focus more on recent allegations that one of President Park Geun-hye's former aides has been meddling in state affairs. The ruling Saenuri Party contends that an investigation into the claims now underway will resolve this very thorny issue. The main opposition is calling for a special probe and may ask that the president reshuffle her cabinet. The rival parties will also have other issues to wrestle with as well, most notably the push to reform the pension system for civil servants. Now, focus is growing on what exactly happened in the lead-up to the so-called nut rage incident that caused the then Vice President of Korean Air to demand the plane be turned back to the terminal. Speaking to Korea-based TV network KBS, head steward Park Chang-jin, who was ordered to get off the plane by Jo Hyun-ah, said he felt ashamed as he was made to kneel down in front of Jo while being bombarded with insults. Park added that Korean Air officials visited his home almost every single day, demanding he falsely testify about the incident before the authorities. Now, Jo has said that she doesn't remember the events Park described, but a passenger in first class who witnessed what happened has backed up Park's side of the story. Korea's transport ministry says Park will be brought in for additional questioning on this Monday.
South Korea has been a major buyer of Western military hardware for many years, but now its own defense industry is growing at a startling pace.
Yeah, it really is. And for a look at what has driven the nation's success in recent years, Kim Hyun-bin has this week's Industry Insight.
South Korea's defense exports have ballooned over the past 5 years or so. Until the early 2000s, the country's defense industry exports were mainly small arms and supplies, such as boots and helmets. The situation today is vastly different. In recent years, South Korea has been exporting heavy-duty military arms and vehicles, including fighter jets, submarines, and destroyers. This shift has dramatically boosted the nation's defense exports in dollar terms. In 2006, South Korea broke the $250 million mark for the first time. By 2011, this had jumped to $2.3 billion. And last year, the figure topped $3.4 billion. So what triggered the boom in sales?
Our prices compare favorably, and the nations that buy from South Korea are satisfied with what they get. All of our defense-related exports are used by the South Korean Army and are proven for battle. Also, as a lot of countries in the Southeast Asia are locked in territorial disputes with China, many now buy their defense-related equipment and supplies from South Korea instead of China.
The spillover effects from the defense deals to the economy have been sizable. Take, for example, the sale of 24 Fa-50 fighter jets to Iraq in 2013. Now, this deal, worth over $1.1 billion, will develop a chain of suppliers networks and after-sale deals that are estimated to total more than $4 billion. This project has also created roughly 36,000 jobs. While this sounds great, South Korea still has a long way to go to reach the level of the major players in the industry. The country's exports accounted for a mere 0.8% of the world's total defense exports. The United States, Russia, Britain, Germany, and France together have a grip on 3/4 of the total global arms market. And the dominant powers aren't sitting back as South Korea tries to sharpen its competitive edge.
The United States, France, Britain, and Germany are watching South Korea very closely as they are competitors in the international arms market. Koreans should have pride in their defense industry and support government policies that make our country more competitive on the global stage.
South Korea has been successful so far, but to sustain and increase its share of the multi-billion-dollar arms market, the industry needs to diversify.
South Korea should open up to more markets in the third world. Most of them are in territorial conflicts and in need of naval equipment such as combat ships. In the future, we could make up to 3% of the total defense exports. But we need to invent new weaponry and upgrade our Korean-style weapons to meet global standards.
Competition is fiercer than ever, with Japan and China jumping into the defense market at full speed. For that reason, experts say the Korean government and the public need to stay committed and focused to maintain their growth in the international market. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Well, it snowed a few hours ago here in Seoul, and it will start to snow again soon. And as we can see, these rain clouds are gradually moving into the peninsula. So the Gangwon-do regions will receive up to 20 centimeters of heavy snowfall, while Seoul and the surrounding regions will see somewhere between 1 to 3 centimeters. Starting at the lunch hour, that it's expected to snow all day long and possibly into tomorrow. But owing to the relatively milder However, temperatures, it could be a mix of snow and rain, as the afternoon temperature here in Seoul will hike up to 3, while Daegu and Gwangju should peak at 6 and 8 respectively. And as for the other regions, Jeju Island will be getting up to 12, while Daejeon and Dokdo sees highs of 6 and 5. Now, this band of rain and snow will bring a severe cold wave to the nation starting tomorrow, and it will be the coldest on Wednesday and Thursday, with lows plunging to -12 here in the capital. So get ready for really cold days to come. That's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that just about brings us to the end of this edition of Newsline at Noon.
Mark and I will be back at the same time on Tuesday. Thank you for watching.